Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Not a great day to be a right-wing commentator. Honestly, not a good day for the folks over at the F channel. Not a good day considering they're being force-fed the Kool-Aid, because got to defend 45, got to defend the cult, got to defend all the stuff that you did in 2020. And this is the part this is the part that's interesting to me, because when you do stuff, there's accountability. There are consequences. And all of those statements that the Marjorie Three Names and Gun Fetish Barbie and Lindsey Graham and all of those statements they made about it being a stolen election, now this stuff's coming back up and gonna haunt. Because as you know today, the walls at Mar-a-Lago must be bleeding ketchup as the hamburgers are being thrown in every direction. Because look, another indictment, another set of charges, and not surprising, knew this was coming. The difference in this is, well, there's some other co-conspirators that folks are thinking about. And yesterday on the program, I couldn't remember Sidney Powell's name, and I can't believe I couldn't remember her. But I'm going, she's got to be one of the people. And they're saying, quite frankly, she's probably one of the people listed as the co-conspirator. Some are saying Ginny Thomas. Now, this is where the fun and the entertainment and the gamesmanship comes, because this is a good betting opportunity. If democracy is on the brink of destruction, might as well have a little entertainment with it. But they're saying that of the co-conspirators being thrown out there, Rudy Giuliani, which I think everyone knows, Sidney Powell, John Eastman, Jeffrey Clark. Those are the names that, quite frankly, they should. I wish they were named, but what this tells me this is that. And look, I'm not an attorney by any stretch of the imagination, but I do understand gamesmanship a little bit. This is one of those things where we're not going to slap your name out there directly. We're not going to charge you right yet, but we're going to let you know we got you. We're going to let you know that we got all of this. And what you can do to save your own behind is turn on the former guy. Save your skin. This is a rat alert. The rats are going to be jumping ship, because look, the only way the Republican Party can purge itself of Trump is, well, the rats coming out and saying what actually happened. And this is one of those moments where there's a chance for the Republican Party to redeem itself. And I know, Mike Pence had his moment. In fact, I love the story. Mike Pence hits Trump hard. And I'm going, wait a minute. What are you talking about? Hits Trump hard. His statement was, today's indictment serves as an important reminder. Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. Our country is more important than one man. Our Constitution is more important than any one man's career. On January 6th, former President Trump demanded that I choose between him and the Constitution. I chose the Constitution, and I always will. After, and this is which wasn't in the statement, but I'm going to add it for him since he seemed to have forgotten it. After consulting with Dan Quayle and another judge to find a little courage and to remind me that, no, the Constitution doesn't allow you to have that power. And what's interesting is there are folks who are kind of giving Pence some credit. He's stealing up the spine. No credit here for Mike Pence. None. You had January 7th. You could have come out and said, hey, they tried to hang me. They did all of this stuff. You could have saved us all of this, but didn't. So no courage points for you. None. Now, I know this is all about he's running for president, not a snowball's chance. Now, this is the third indictment. You got the Manhattan DA. What are there? How many charges are there? Something like 34? 34 charges, falsifying business records and all kinds of stuff. The hush money to the porn star. And then there's the first Jack Smith indictment, which I guess was originally 37 felony counts. Now they've bumped that up to 40 felony counts. That could be a lifetime in prison. And now this one, number three, the third one could be the charm. And with these charges, he could face up to 55 years in jail, which, again, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. But he's charged with conspiracy to defraud the U.S., conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. I'm not quite sure what that one is, but that's I think the least of it's like 5 years there. No seditious conspiracy, none of the charges none of the treason that I was hoping we would see. And I gotta think that this is Jack Smith going, again, not a lawyer, just someone who thinks strategically. The big charge, that's gonna get met with a lot of appeals and a lot of procedure. Go with the reduced counts because they might be easier to prove. And if the rats do scurry, as I expect that they will, think the former chief of staff, Mark Meadows. Haven't heard much out of Mark, have we? And that, kind of thrown out there that, he's probably cooperating. He's probably trying to save his own skin. So a lot of this, I'm sure a lot of this is from the mouth of the former chief of staff. Again, the rats are fleeing. Now, some of the other things that came out of the indictment that I found interesting were, one of the co-conspirators argued that the military could be used to, put down any insurrection. Could put down any protest using you guessed it, the Insurrection Act. So having an insurrection and then being able to declare martial law and then being able to use the Insurrection Act to put down anyone trying to put down the insurrection. Think about that for a minute. And my mind goes, gee, who could possibly be in a military position, high ranking, general kind of person, maybe someone who served in Congress, maybe someone who had a cell phone that was picked up by the FBI, maybe someone who's my congressman, Scott Perry. Maybe this could be Scott Perry. We don't know, but maybe, because it sounds like military background, was eyeball deep in this. He's the guy who brought Jeffrey Clark to the ball, reportedly, allegedly. Sounds, reasonable in crazy land. He is the head of the quote-unquote Freedom Caucus. Sounds right in their wheelhouse. So again, my mind comes back to, when do we start holding all of these people accountable? Now, this third set of indictments, this, from what I've been reading, is going to be much harder to delay. The documents case is going to be pretty simple to delay that. And we're going to reach out to our legal expert, Renato Mariotti, here later in the week to get his thoughts on this. But it seems to me that this should go rather quickly, especially if the rats are jumping ship, especially if Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and the rest of them go, hey, got to save my skin. He did it. Because that's coming. Everyone's going to go, he did it. Now, this is where the fun then begins. Because we know Trump is, he's pretty well screwed. And the only thing he can do, and I was talking about this with a friend earlier today, and he's like, well, does he do the Harvey Weinstein or the Paul Manafort where oh, my health is so bad, and walking in with an oxygen tank? Do you think he plays this to the sympathy? And I'm like, no, I don't. It's like all the people who during his administration were saying he's going to resign, he's going to break and all that. No. He is going to go down with the ship claiming to be the victim every step of the way. And this is where the dangerous part of this comes. Because no matter what happens, and we've seen some polling on this, there is a large percentage of people in this country who don't care what he has done. He is dear leader, and it doesn't matter. And this is where Fannie Willis, in Georgia, telling people around the case there, be careful, make good decisions, don't put yourself in danger, because it could get crazy. And that's what Trump is really hoping, because look, he's already been stoking that kind of fire. He's already been riling the base up with this kind of this is what Nazis do. If you didn't see his truths today, that was one of them. Comparing Jack Smith and everyone to the Nazis. And generally, when you go Nazi, you're losing the argument. When you're accusing the other person of being the Nazi, when you're the authoritarian, kind of losing that one. But for me, it's about more than just getting Trump. There's so much more to this. And I know everyone wants to see the Orange Menace in an orange jumpsuit. I know everyone wants to see Nectarine Nero, burning down. But I want everybody else. I want the moneyed interests who funded that entire debacle. I want all the members of Congress who were involved in this. My congressman, Scott Perry, Jim Jordan, who's been stoking this fire, Andy Biggs, Paul Gosar, Marjorie Three Names, Gun Fetish Barbie. Even Mo Brooks is surprised they didn't talk to him. Louis Go-Go Gohmert, there's Matt Gaetz, there's a bunch of these people who, thank you, January 6th committee, for holding really incredible hearings and bringing all this stuff to light. But it's now time for the DOJ and Jack Smith and the rest of them to start holding people really accountable, because it's the only way, honestly, and this is my true, heart belief. The only way we can move forward as a country and have closure over this period and have some form of good governance going forward is if these people are actually held accountable and publicly tried. Then this can't be one of those things, we're going to do it behind closed doors and we'll have reporters reporting on it. This has got to be televised on every major network. This has got to be more publicized than OJ. In fact, if you want to break out the Bronco and drive Donald there, fine. If you need to get the ratings, and look, he would love that, because for him it's all about ratings, and it would get ratings. Because, well, people on the left want to see him go down, and people on the right want to be angry about the fact that he's being held accountable and what kind of lies are being told about him. And in the process, maybe they find out something, like what he actually did and what happened behind the scenes, and that all that stuff we heard during the January 6 hearings actually happened. But here's the funny part in all this. The funny part in all this is still Donald Trump is fleecing the flock. The faithful are sending him huge amounts of money to his super PAC, the Save America PAC. And evidently, someone went through his filings and they're covering expenses for, one of the consultant's child support cases. They were spending money on, just all kinds of stuff, all kinds of things. Hey, you got expenses, you got stuff. You need a little extra cheese on the Whopper. But the one that's getting the most attention is evidently Melania Trump has a high cost of getting her hair done, because out of the Save America PAC, $108,000 to a hairdresser, to Melania's hairdresser. So, yeah, there you go. Fleecing the flock. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. Right back with your thoughts. Stick around. You're You listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So lots of interest in this. Let's quick go to the phones. Got Frank in Indiana on line one. Frank, how we doing today? Frank hung up. Look at that. What do you know? I was going to Frank, and Frank just bailed on me. Let's go to line three. We got Alice on three. Alice, how we doing tonight? What's on your mind?
Okay, so what I wanted to say was we definitely need to hold these people accountable for a number of reasons, because if we don't, they're going to try it again.
Yep.
The very idea, and nothing, the lunatic parts that aren't believing anything, nothing's going to change their mind. And, you know, as it is now, they're screaming all over Fox News and One American News and the whole nine yards and Facebook and whatnot, that, you know, it's all because it's covering up for Biden's and Hunter Biden. And it's like, my God, people, what part did you miss of, first off, Hunter Biden wasn't involved in the government, isn't involved in the government, and is a private citizen.
Yep.
If you want to go there, go after Trump's kids. And number two, this nonsense of you're going, it was a false flag operation in the FBI and yada, yada. You know, it's just crazy.
Ray Epps did it. He's a Marine who runs a wedding center in Arizona. That sounds fishy to me. No Marine would run a wedding center.
I'm telling you, it is just totally insane. And watching these people, you know, I'm reading the comments in WAPO section, and you can tell the trolls, the GOPers, and the right-wing nuts and Q-nuts, because their comments are just, you know,
save your sanity.
Crazy. And
save your sanity, Alice. Don't read the troll comments. Save your sanity.
Oh, I like reading them because I giggle. I think they're just stupid. I'm thinking, yeah, who can figure out that, Boris? Or is it Natasha?
Boris.
But anyways, have a good evening, Rick.
There you go. Thanks, Alice. Appreciate the thoughts. No, you don't read the comments. Just don't do it. Let's go line two. We got Julie in Minnesota on two. Julie, how are we doing today? Julie, you there?
Hi. My phone's a little low, Rick, but I'd like to throw out this question to you, Rick.
Hit me.
I just saw a poll today. The president and Donald Trump are running neck and neck in the polls. I'm just wondering what you think, and I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
I appreciate it. No, this is one of those things that, you know, look, we're a polarized country right now. You know, when you look at the last election, you know, split down the middle, and masterfully so. I mean, you know, rural versus the urbans, white men versus, you know, black women. I mean, they've figured out how to slice and dice this country up so that they're the predictables. But it's 43% on each side. Those are going to be your lever pools. And I've said this for years. 5% generally, the 5% of the population generally decides every election. And they are the least informed, least engaged, least active voters in the country. That's how bad our system can be sometimes. The positive in this is, as the economy's turning around, as inflation's coming down, as wages are going up, as we're reinvesting in manufacturing, we're seeing all this stuff happening. Those undecideds, that group in the middle, that 14% in the middle, that's where you're going to see them, I think, break. And I read the same poll. It's breaking more towards Biden with those folks who they called none of the above because they don't want either one of them. But when you've got to make the choice, I think they're going to break towards Biden, especially as more of this comes out. But here's my problem in this. 65% of this country is considered working class. 65% of the country gets up every day and punches a clock to put food on the table, to put a roof over their head. And they're struggling, man. And this is where my frustration in all of this is, because we consume this outrage candy media where the biggest issue of the day is Hunter Biden. No, the big issue of the day is children are going to bed hungry. The big issue of the day is workers are dying on the job. The big issue of the day should be, that they're, people my age and a little bit older are losing their jobs at Yellow Freight and can't retire yet and have no idea what to do, and families are going to be broken because a behemoth corporation screwed them over. We've got so many problems, and we get hung up on what's being fed to us, what the billionaire class wants us focused on, which is the daily outrage. I focus on this Trump stuff because it's important. This is our democracy. This is our political system right in front of us being destroyed. This is important. But for me, it comes back to we have better figure out quickly as a working class how to come together. And I think it's happening. You're seeing all of this labor activity. You're seeing all these strikes. You're seeing all of this unrest that's going on because people are tired of working hard, working long hours, struggling to make ends meet, and still falling behind. And at some point, I gotta hope, Julie, at some point that people go, the outrage isn't enough for me anymore. And we're going to start going back to voting on policy. This is one of those weird things, because I was just reading an article over at the Times today. In fact, this was part of it. Talking about how Biden wasn't getting credit for the economy, and the economy's doing really well for some people. And they pointed to DeSantis. They actually quoted him in the article. And he's like, even if inflation is less, prices aren't going down. He goes through this whole thing about how in Florida, you can't buy a house. How the media, how does he say it here? For a middle-class family, affording a home is prohibitive. If you look at the median income compared to the median home price, there's a bigger gap than there was when the financial crisis hit. After the big housing increase of 2006 to 2007, cars have become less affordable. This is a guy who, insurance companies are leaving the state because of climate. Houses are gone through the roof. You want to talk about unaffordable. And interestingly enough, Miami-Dade County has just recorded its first population drop since the 1970s. The state now has the highest inflation rate of anywhere in the country, a high cost of living, and oh, by the way, the insurance companies are leaving. That's DeSantis' Florida, but he's going to point the finger at Joe Biden. So for me, at the end of this, it's about standing up, speaking out, and putting down some of this insanity that's being perpetrated by people like DeSantis, who are just outrage merchants. That's it. I want people who are going to get things done. That's why I like Jelly Bucket Joe. Just my thoughts. Want to hear yours. Quick break, right back.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1934. That was the day National Guard troops in Minneapolis raided Teamsters Local 574 headquarters. Over 150 were arrested, including top strike leaders Bill Brown and the Dunn brothers, who were imprisoned in military stockades. Troops also seized union records and files. They then raided the Central Labor Union and forcing out dozens of area labor leaders. The Teamsters had been battling the trucking bosses and the Citizens Alliance throughout the spring and summer in what would be a turning point for industrial organizing. Finally, drivers agreed to a tentative settlement, but the bosses rejected any deal, refusing to negotiate with Reds. Farmer Labor Party Governor Floyd Olson declared martial law the next day. 4,000 troops arrived, issuing unlimited military permits to scab drivers. By month's end, over 7,500 scab trucks were rolling throughout the city. Local 574 challenged the martial law, demanding that peaceful picketing and open-air meetings be reinstated. They also wanted troops withdrawn from the city, and they wanted all truck movement halted for 48 hours. When Olson rejected these demands, a mass rally was called for the 31st to mobilize strike support. 25,000 turned out to the parade grounds cheering strike leader Bill Brown, who declared, quote, "The Farmer Labor Party is the best strike-breaking force our union has ever gone up against." Historian Brian Palmer notes the loudest and longest applause was reserved for Albert Goldman, who thundered, quote, "If we submit without a struggle, then we deserve the fate of submissive slaves. We cannot, we dare not submit. We call upon the workers, organized and unorganized, to clench their fists, shout defiance of the bosses, and struggle until victory or death."
Little known fact, a leading cause of death in Texas is Governor Greg Abbott. Yes, by intentional actions and deliberate inactions, Abbott has used his gubernatorial policies to kill thousands of Texans, including his calculated refusal to extend health care to millions of poor Texans, including nearly 1 million children. His intentional denial of water breaks for outdoor workers broiling under this year's 100-degree-plus heat dome. His lethal deregulation of utilities, causing the state power grid to collapse for days in the deep freeze of 2021, with hundreds dying for lack of heat and water. And his shameful prioritizing of gun extremism over the lives of school children. These people are not dying accidentally, but are victims of Abbott's premeditated policies and political ambition. Consider his silly scheme of throwing $9.5 billion of Texas taxpayers' money into the ditch of his highly ballyhooed border security PR show. Grandiosely branded Operation Lone Star, it has posed Generalissimo Abbott as a right-wing border hero. Some hero, he has stretched miles of razor wire underwater in the Rio Grande, slashing the flesh of migrant families and trapping babies and pregnant women in the coils. And Abbott's state troopers have been commanded to shove exhausted and injured refugees back into the river toward Mexico. As one appalled trooper says, "We have stepped over a line into the inhumane." This willful cruelty is made ridiculous by the fact that Abbott's militaristic power play has totally failed to deter migration. After all, these families are fleeing for their lives and future, so he can wrap all of Texas in razor wire and they will still come and find a way in. This is Jim Hightower saying Abbott can kill lots of them, but he can't kill the human spirit.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, email me, Rick at thericksmithshow.com. So President Biden tweeted out a little something caught my attention. He said, "Some say America used to be the largest manufacturer in the world, but now we can't compete." He says, "I've never believed it. We led the world in manufacturing, and we're doing it again with my Investing in America agenda." And look, this is and in terrestrial radio, I can't really say what I want to say, but I'm going to steal a Bidenism. This is a big freaking deal. It is a big freaking deal that we're reshoring manufacturing and the explosion that has happened in the last year. And here to share some thoughts on just what's being built, where it's happening, and how it's back from a 41-day tour of America, like 8,000 miles in 41 days, to bring us all of the good stuff that's going on in the country. That's why I've asked Scott Paul to come talk with us. He's the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, AmericanManufacturing.org, the website. Scott, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, it's great to be back on.
It is great to see you. We've missed you. We've missed you, and I'm
Likewise.
glad you're back.
Likewise.
So walk me through. What did we see?
Yeah. So, I was really going into this trip. I mean, obviously this was a family trip, but I had a lot of vision going on for the economy as well. And I was pretty blown away by what I saw, I will say. There were major infrastructure projects in every state we went through, and we went through, about 20 of them, at least. And on top of that, traveling through Tennessee, going by sites in Nashville and Memphis where they're standing up new electric vehicle and battery production, which is a big deal, and extraordinary. Passing by Dallas and seeing a semiconductor factory under construction, and then going by Phoenix and seeing a massive new semiconductor facility going up was just stunning. Saw a solar panel facility in San Jose, California. Lots of manufacturing outside of Reno, Nevada. And the list goes on and on and on. But what I noticed, Rick, and I will say this, the infrastructure money is getting out there. I think it's getting out there earlier than a lot of people had thought, and it's good. We need it. Some of this is upgrading bridges that have been, not up to standard for the last decade or so. The factory construction definitely going on. Every factory I stopped by was hiring, which was pretty remarkable. And I just, for someone who's been working on these issues a long time, and I know you've been, talking about them, you've been concerned about them for a long time as well. I mean, it truly is an extraordinary moment in America to have this manufacturing renaissance take place. And look, I'm not going to pretend like there aren't problems. Sure. There will be problems, of course, but we've never had this much kind of good news in manufacturing for decades and decades and decades, probably since like the 60s, I'm guessing. So it's been a long time.
No, and the important thing here is it's new technology. I mean, it's the green stuff, it's the solar panels, finally cutting some ties with China and saying, we're gonna source this stuff ourselves. And because I've said for years, there was a book written back, I think in the 90s sometime, America What Went Wrong. Yeah. And they went through all of these different things, like the rotary dial phone, for instance, just to take that as one of their examples. And there was a plant in Chicago that made the rotary dial phone, and all of those people lost their jobs when they went to the push button phones because they made those overseas. Those jobs didn't stay in that factory. And we've been losing those kind of things, those technological advancements, we've been losing for 20, 30 years. So it's good to finally see that stuff, staying at home with a president that's saying, hey, buy American is important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 100% correct. And this is and I'm trying to think of the right way to put this, because sometimes it's the business cycle that you're in that's adding a lot of the manufacturing jobs or taking them away, either because we're in a recession, right, or we're in a period of growth and we're adding jobs. And the business cycle right now, honestly, isn't like awesome for manufacturing because consumer spending is going down a little bit. The Fed has hiked up interest rates. So there's a lot of headwinds there. But what we're seeing, and there's been some good reporting on this, is that the public investment, the hundreds of billions of dollars of public investment in the infrastructure, in the semiconductors, in the clean energy manufacturing is having a tangible impact. And so it's lifting that boat back up, because otherwise manufacturing might be shedding jobs right now were it not for that. And so it is we're getting it right. And I'm not going to pretend like we've learned every lesson. Because our trade policy can still use some improvement. I think it's generally headed in the right direction. We got to keep these investments in place. There's a lot of folks who want to get rid of them. And there's a lot of folks who want to undo the Made in America requirements, who want to see climate progress, but they don't care where the stuff is coming from. And so it's we have some obstacles, but I'm really bullish. I'm really optimistic, and I do say that this president's policies and some of this has had bipartisan support. I think it's worth pointing out. are having a difference for manufacturing. Right.
No, it's finally having a policy. I mean, it's finally saying that we should have some say in which way the economy goes and what kind of jobs we create, instead of having this idea that the invisible guy with the invisible hands, he's going to do all this stuff. No, it's about actually having an industrial policy that we really haven't had for decades.
Yeah. It's been a long time. I mean, it's taking a step back in history, I think, is a little important, because we've been at our best when we've had industrial policy. You think about the interstate highway system. You think about the boosting the space program in the 60s. You think about the arsenal of democracy during World War II. You think about the Transcontinental Railroad. You think about the Hamiltonian policy that kind of moved us away from just simply being an agrarian country into a country that can make things and not have to depend on England or France for all of our goods. And so, when we've gotten this right, we've seen a lot of progress made, and we've seen a lot of progress made for working people during those periods as well. And I think that's important to understand.
Yeah.
And so it is we don't take it for granted, but there has been this shift in policy, and I think it's going to be very hard for folks to walk away from it, because a lot of these investments, Rick, are in, some of them are in red states, some of them are in blue states, some of them are in congressional districts of folks who didn't support the president, some of them are. And so you have a hard time explaining why you don't want that solar panel factory or that bus factory or whatever it is that's coming in thanks to the federal investment. And so I think, I think ultimately, obviously, from an economic perspective, this is good for working people. From a political perspective, I think this is good for folks like Joe Biden, who believed in it and who got it across the finish line.
So, in bringing that up, then why are the polls so bad? I was just, again, reading some polling that, saying, hey, Biden's not getting the credit for the economy that I think a lot of people believe he should be getting. That, his polling numbers aren't propped up by the fact that we are reshoring manufacturing, that he is, honestly and truthfully, he has kind of turned away from the policies that, as senator, that he was pushing for, the free trade and the neoliberalism of the past. He's moving us away from. So do you see that the potential that the polling numbers will pop up as people see what you saw, traveling across this country?
Yeah, I thought about that, and particularly, I remember we were in South Dakota, and I went on this trip with my boys, and so they see some things that I don't, and I see some things that they do. But we were talking about the unemployment rate, and they looked it up in South Carolina. South Dakota. It was incredibly low. It was
like 1.2%.
What?
It's like 1.2, 1.5%.
It's ridiculously low,
yeah.
And anybody who wants a job can have one there. The economy's doing great. And then if you pulled that state, they're not going to they're not going to give Biden any credit for this, because if they're watching Fox or if they're getting their news, all it is like the border or Hunter Biden or this or that, and none of it's about the kitchen table issues. But it is I guess I'm the eternal optimist, and I do think that people get concerned about the economy when it gets closer to the election. But it is from all the metrics, Rick, this is great. I mean, I don't think the public opinion has caught up with that yet, but in almost any community that you're in around this country, and there are very few exceptions to this, things are good in the labor market.
Look, and the policies are spot on. You listen to the Rick Smith Show with Scott Paul. He's the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, AmericanManufacturing.org, their website, if you want to take a look at the incredible work that they do. Because here's the thing, like Buy American is not unpopular. I've yet to find anybody who goes, no. I want to buy that cheap plastic crap from China. I've yet to find that. And the fact, there's evidently an executive order about to be signed encouraging U.S. inventions. Invent Here, Make It Here Act, I guess, is being introduced at some point. This should be, I think, really popular. in the same vein as Buy American. If we're going to have the intellectual, entrepreneurial spirit to create, we should probably make it too.
Yeah. Well, I think that this stuff will stick when there's more of a focus on economic issues. But this issue in particular is a great example because for years we had devoted taxpayer dollars to federally funded research at those amazing labs that we have around the country, like Lawrence Livermore, or any of these other labs. And there was theoretically a preference for once there was a patent or something that the stuff should be made in the United States, but it was easily waived. It was never enforced. And there's all sorts of horror stories about this federally funded research that ends up being manufactured in China or somewhere. And so Senator Tammy Baldwin noticed this. In the last Congress, she worked with Rob Portman on a piece of legislation that addressed it in a narrow way because of the legislation that they were attaching it to, a very complex thing. But she offered a bigger bill this time with Senator J.D. Vance, working across the aisle. And Biden said, this is a great idea. In fact, I'm going to sign an executive order that basically does this. And so, he went to a textile factory in Maine. First visit by an American president to a textile factory since, I think, the early 2000s, and signed this. And it's going to have an impact. It means that all those amazing technologies that we're making in these federal labs, that American manufacturers will really have the first shot at getting these out the door and getting these commercialized, which I think is an awesome thing.
No,
and
awesome.
That's going to have like 85-90% support. I mean, who's going to oppose that?
Exactly. No, I mean, and that's it's good policy. It's good politics, but it's good policy more importantly. It's creating jobs. It's again, let me think of one of those stupid slogans that my right wing friend. Oh, it's America first. Yeah, it's that.
Yes, but for real.
Yeah.
And I think this is the difference, is that this is not chauvinistic, but there is something to be said for progressive economic nationalism, because America is a better country when we have a strong economy and a strong middle class and the ability to make a lot of the stuff that we need, and then we can lend a helping hand to others.
Yep.
Okay. That's what, and I think that is the vision that we have. The stuff that they talk about is phony. It's fake. And the idea, and this is always the thing that gets me, that there's like some mass of immigrants coming into the country that are stealing all the jobs. This is just not happening. It is not happening. There is, I mean, everybody is all employers are looking for people to work right now. And it's not this chaos. I mean, we went through El Paso and it seemed actually like a normal city, and not like you see it on Fox News. It is crazy stuff. But the real, if you're really going to put America first, you do the Buy America, you invest in manufacturing, you invest in our workers, you make us a truly strong nation and not a nation that fears the other.
I'm right there with you. And finally, I wanted to bring this up because look, as we've been talking about, a lot of good things happening, a lot of manufacturing, a lot of jobs being created, but just as bad policy got us into a hole, I think good policy is taking us out of it. Bad policy can rear its ugly head, and I'm looking at the auto industry and the fact that there's a chance that China is going to start bringing in some autos into the U.S. Are you hearing anything about this? These cheap EVs, these cheap. I remember a couple years ago they were talking about bringing the Cherries in, which are like $2,000 for a car.
Right.
And who knows what kind of car they were? They probably make the Yugo look luxurious. But have you heard anything on this?
Yeah. And look, this is a big concern. And right now, there's basically a 27.5% tariff on Chinese EVs that are coming in. But even despite that, there are some brands, Polestar is one of them, GM brings in a couple of electric vehicles from, or will be from China. Tesla is thinking about it, but then the other homegrown Chinese companies, BYD, NIO, they desperately want into the U.S. market because we're going to be a fast-growing market interested in EVs. And the EV, even though you won't get an EV tax credit for it, they've had so much subsidization in China.
Yeah,
they'll be able to sell these things at cut rate. And for people who aren't interested in an EV pickup truck or SUV, these sedans are going to be very attractive. The problem is, this is going to cost a whopping number of jobs in the United States of America. And we don't have a level playing field. Like, we can't sell these things back into China. And so we got to just say no.
Yeah.
And get ahead of this because I'm deeply, deeply concerned about this. We can do this, and we should certainly trade with countries that are interested in a level playing field. But the idea of EVs coming from China and the United States, that's something I do not support.
I'm right there with you. But again, the question comes back to, are you a consumer first or are you a worker first? This is one of those issues. A consumer is going, I don't care about anything but the cheapest price I can get. A worker is going, hey, maybe the job that I saved by buying this product might be my own.
That's right.
So again, it's a which side are you on kind of moment. But we'll see how this plays out, and hopefully you'll keep us up to date and in tune with what's going on. Scott, appreciate the time.
All right, Rick. Right back to you. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
And good to see you back again from your trip. Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, americanmanufacturing.org, the website. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back. Stick around.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1917. Frank Little, an activist for the industrial workers of the world, or Wobblies, was lynched near Butte, Montana. His beaten body was found hung off a railroad trestle. On it was pinned a disturbing note. It read, quote, "Others take notice. First and last warning. 3777 LDCSSWT. The numbers were the measurement of a grave. Each letter was the initial of a union organizer. The letter L for Frank Little was circled. The warning was clear. Union organizers leave town or die. Butte was copper mining country, and efforts to unionize the miners had turned the area into a battleground. Frank had arrived that July to help in the efforts to support striking miners. Frank Little was a leader of the IWW with experience organizing free speech campaigns, lumberjacks, and miners. Although not much is known of his early life, it is thought his mother was Cherokee and his father was a Quaker. He organized the wives of the miners to join in the pickets and helped build solidarity between the multiple unions that organized in the area. The Anaconda Mining Company took note of his presence, but could not find a legal means to stop him. Then, early on that fateful day, men came to his boarding house. They claimed they were police officers. They gagged Little and stuffed him into a car. They beat him and drug him through part of town tied to the car bumper. And it was at the county line where they hung Frank Little's body. News of the atrocity spread far and wide. Thousands attended the funeral. Not surprisingly, the authorities never found his murderers. Some doubt they ever tried. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
I use that old labor frame a lot. The idea of which side are you on? Are you on the side of, the employer or the side of the worker? It comes down to that kind of a moment when you're looking at the strikes that are going on. There are no in-between moments. Are you on the side of the bosses? Are you on the side of big capital? Or are you on the side of the workers and on the side of labor? It's very simple. because depending on which side gets the advantage, it could affect you one way or another. And as I've said, about 65% of this country is solidly working class. They get up, they punch a clock, they cash a paycheck, and it never seems to make it to the end of the week. We're all in the same kind of boat. So, when Scott's talking about, these products coming in from China, be it the EVs, be it the Temu stuff, look, it's cheap. It's really cheap. We're gonna live like a billionaire with no wages. And at some point, you have to have a manufacturing base, which again, I'm thrilled with Joe Biden's doing. I think we're heading in the right direction, but it does come back to that. And what's interesting is, the Reuters had a piece today talking about kind of the same frame of, basically which side are you on in this moment, because they're saying, look, you've got customers who want, they want what they want. They want it now. They want to be able to swipe their phone, have a product, and it be magically delivered to their door, and not cost them anything. And you've got workers who are the ones behind the scenes who are literally being, worked to death. And it's this, which side? Is your consumer side beating out your concern for workers? And what the SAG-AFTRA strike, what this article is talking about, what the SAG-AFTRA strike and the UPS contract fight were talking about was just that, was giving a behind the scenes look at what it takes to deliver that package and get it to your door, what it took to get those films produced and written, and to look in the rubber rooms, in the mini rooms of workers being abused, and saying, look, we can do better, and we should be doing better. And this is why, what UPS was, what the Teamsters were able to do with UPS at this point, a victory, a major victory. Doing something on overtime, getting air conditioning into the trucks. There's a lot of stuff there. But it comes back to us. It comes back to we, the working people, deciding which side of this equation are we on. It's like when I go to the supermarket, my kids know. We go to the store, we go to the supermarket, anywhere, and there's a self-checkout. I'm never using it. I'm going to go to the place where there's someone who's there doing it. And this has happened before, where we've gone and we've picked out our stuff at the supermarket and there's nobody to check you out. And they go, you have to use the self-checkout. I go, well, then you're going to have to put the stuff back because I am not doing it. And then they bring somebody out and they go through this whole process. But we've got to decide, which side are we on in this? Are we on the side of capital making more, or on the side of having jobs for people to make their lives better? And the thing is, as Scott pointed out, there are jobs plentiful in a lot of places, like South Dakota. In fact, so plentiful that people have 2, 3, 4 of them. In fact, a lot of states are saying, hey, we want to put those kids back into those jobs. Maybe we should be talking about not just the number of jobs, but how well those jobs support a family, how well they're able to bring prosperity to a community. Yeah, is the work you're doing being compensated properly, fairly, equally? Are you getting what you earn? That's always my question. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break, right back.
For vast parts of North America, Asia, Africa, and Europe, it's a cruel summer. For the entire planet, it is a disaster.
July 2023, the hottest month in all of recorded history. President Biden enacts new heat protections for workers, plus
the cost of living for Victorians is getting bigger and bigger. Doing something about it is exactly what today is about.
An Australian state bans natural gas in new construction.
All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
The era of global warming has ended.
Great!
The era of global boiling has arrived.
Damn it. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, we saw this coming all the way down the road from June. Hottest month ever in July?
Oh, yes. Climate scientists didn't even wait until the end of July to declare it the hottest July in history since record-keeping began in the mid-1800s. July is also the hottest month ever recorded on planet Earth. That's according to preliminary analysis from the World Meteorological Organization and Europe's Copernicus Climate Service.
So not just the hottest July ever, but the hottest month ever recorded on planet Earth.
Yes, and it's also likely the hottest in 120,000 years based on evidence of past temperatures in paleoclimate records. Endless extreme summer heat across the southern United States is now entering its third straight month. NASA forecasts a hotter than normal August and September for much of the nation, likely to set new temperature records.
Oh, great.
Phoenix on Monday finally ended its record streak of 31 consecutive days at or above 110 degrees. That's nearly double the previous record set 50 years ago.
So global cooling has begun.
No, that makes Phoenix the first U.S. city to hit 110 degrees for a full month, but likely not the last. An Arizona wildlife rehabilitation facility says it is receiving as many as 120 wild animals a day suffering from the relentless heat. As the northern hemisphere broils, it's winter down under, but Australia is on track to see its warmest winter on record, with Sydney averaging 74 degrees. The South Pole is in deep winter, but scientists say Antarctica's sea ice extent has hit record lows for the satellite era, missing an amount of sea ice equal to the area of Argentina. The increasing frequency and intensity of extreme heat is symptomatic of global human-driven climate change that is fueling these extreme heat waves, wildfires, storms and floods, and more across the globe. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres excoriated world governments for slow-walking the transition away from fossil fuels.
The only surprise is the speed of the change. Climate change is here. It is terrifying. And it is just the beginning. No more excuses. No more waiting for the others to move first. There is simply no more time for that.
Good luck with that, Tony.
Here in the U.S., federal data show that extreme heat costs the U.S. economy about $100 billion a year in lost productivity, not just for workers in typical outdoor industries like construction and agriculture, but also workers in factories, restaurants, and more. President Biden on Thursday announced new actions to protect workers and communities from extreme temperatures, including the Labor Department issuing the first ever heat hazard alert for employers to protect their workers from extreme heat.
It clarifies that workers have federal heat-related protections. We should be protecting workers from hazardous conditions, and we will. And those states where they do not, I'm going to be calling them out, where they refuse to protect these workers.
Yeah, I think he's talking to you, Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
Plus, congressional Democrats have introduced the Extreme Heat Emergency Act with a provision to include extreme heat and wildfire smoke as disasters that can qualify for federal emergency assistance.
Good.
Some good news. Canada, the world's fourth largest oil producer, has unveiled a framework for eliminating inefficient subsidies enjoyed by the wildly profitable fossil fuel industry, the first G20 country to act on an international commitment to phase out taxpayer subsidies.
Good.
Climate policy analysts say it is a critical first step, but it falls short because it does allow for government subsidies to the oil and gas industry to use unproven carbon capture and storage to reduce their emissions. And finally, the Australian state of Victoria has banned natural gas hookups in new homes and government buildings starting January 1st, part of a plan to reach net zero emissions in the state by 2045. The Victorian government estimates the change will save households up to $1,000 on their annual energy bills, or $2,000 if they have solar installed, because clean energy is cheaper than fossil fuels.
Sounds terrible. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So another sad kind of day. I grew up in Cleveland. Ohio is my home. And to see them go just kind of crazy. I mean, politically, really losing their mind. When I lived in Ohio, they were saying you had John Glenn, you had Howard Metzenbaum. They weren't crazy. Now I look at drunk with power, gerrymandered like you wouldn't believe, and arrogant, which is why I guess on August 8th, there's a special election going to make it harder for people to amend the state's constitution. This is curious to me, and here to share some thoughts on why this is such an important issue that we have to have a special election in the beginning of August. I don't get it, but that's why I've asked David Pepper to come talk with us. He's the former chairman of the Ohio Democratic Party, also the author of Laboratories of Autocracy, a wake-up call from behind the lines. David, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you. Good to be back with you.
So why? Let's start with why. Why is this so important that you have to have a special election? This couldn't wait?
I mean, when I wrote this book, you just mentioned it, Laboratories of Autocracy, a wake-up call from behind the lines. This is what I was talking about. This is what I was trying to warn people about. They can't wait because they know they would lose if they don't change the rules. There is a November constitutional amendment that, like Kansas and Kentucky and Michigan last year, would protect a woman's right to choose in Ohio and basically rid ourselves of that ban that sent that 10-year-old rape victim in Indiana late last summer to everyone's horror. Well, they know that would win here. Ohio is about 60%, just south of 60% pro-choice. Every poll shows that. They know that. And so when they saw the signatures being gathered, they thought, well, just like they gerrymandered, just like they suppress the vote, how can we change the rules in order to actually win even when we're in the minority? And so that's why they're doing this, to raise the threshold to 60% from 50%. But this has implications way beyond even that, as important as that is. This would cut off our ability to do other types of reforms down the road, like ending the crazy illegal gerrymandering that they are still taking advantage of, potentially raising wages down the road. And they also view this as a part of a national strategy. If they can do this in Ohio, they will try and do it in every single state they can, because when you're running your whole extremist operation through gerrymandered state houses, where you've hijacked these state houses, basically, the one thing that you don't want to stop you is the people of these states saying, time out, we see what we're doing, we're going to stop you. By changing the threshold this way and scaring their voters into thinking that there's some, liberal outside groups that are trying to take over Ohio, which is not the case, not the history, either recent or long term. This is their way of trying to protect what is a strategy basically run through gerrymandered and extremist state houses to run an extremist agenda here, which they know they can never get done in Washington.
Now, I want to go back to this.
Big, it's historic, and it's national in its implications.
Right. I want to go back because I want to make sure I make this point that these special elections, these people banned this and have now brought it back over their own ban.
Correct. And here's how bad it is. I was talking to a reporter earlier today, and this reporter said, well, they repealed the ban, right? I was like, no, they didn't. They tried to repeal the ban. They didn't have the votes to repeal their own ban on August election. So they showed our state and anyone else paying attention that they knew the ban foreclosed an August special election. And by the way, the person leading the charge on this August special election, the day they banned August special election, said, I've spent my entire career getting to this important day where we get rid of August special elections. But the minute this abortion access referendum comes along, they forget. They don't forget their ban. They try to repeal it. They fail to repeal it. And then they say, well, forget the ban anyway. We're just going to demand it. And of course, we now have this hyperpartisan Supreme Court, which 4-3 said, that's fine. You guys are allowed to have an election on a day that the Ohio Revised Code says there should be no August special election. So here's how bad it is. This is a legislature seated in districts that violate the Ohio Constitution, not by me, but per the Ohio Supreme Court. So they're already illegitimate if you view the Ohio Constitution and how they should have done districts. Demanding an election on a day that's illegal to have that election, to try and rig the rules to get in front of something that would otherwise reflect the will of the Ohio people, but that would also long-term stop our ability to fix the gerrymandering and everything else. So if we saw this happening in some other country, as America, we would all say, my God, the democracy of that country and the rule are gone. It's happening right now in the state of Ohio. And I still think we treat it as far too normal for what it really is, which is lawless and undemocratic as hell and cynical as hell, because they literally are saying to the Ohio through TV ads, this is about outside special interests trying to buy Ohio's Constitution. This entire thing is being funded by a billionaire from Illinois who helped fund January 6th. So the whole thing is a out-of-state special interest driven change to Ohio's Constitution to lock the people of Ohio out of their own Constitution.
Well, I mean, the right has always been masterful at accusing the other side of doing what they're actually doing. So I am not surprised by this, but in any way, shape, or form. But, you know, in looking at this, because this is scary stuff, and this could spread to other states if they can get away with this. Where do you see this? Where do you see it going?
It'll be everywhere. I mean, I just was going over a sort of a speech that was given by one of these far right leaders. He said that. This person said, I'm going to send something on this tomorrow. He said to a group earlier this year, we're 0-6 in the states that have had a referendum since Roe. We can't win. We will lose in Ohio. We have to change to 60% or we will keep losing. And if we do that, we can stop it here, meaning protecting a woman's right to choose. We can stop it everywhere. They know that this is a national test case. And if and what are they messaging on? They're messaging on the same old, this is about parental rights. That has almost nothing to do with issue 1. But they're taking the biggest boogeyman they can think of, throwing it into this campaign. And so they are testing. And again, not to keep talking about a book I wrote, but my book is called Laboratories of Autocracy, partly because they are always learning from their test cases. Yeah. And so if this does happen in Ohio, any state where citizens have the right to change their constitutions, which is most states, they will, I guarantee you, bring the 60% threshold to those states, and they will say to those states, look, Ohio did it because they wanted to protect their constitution. So absolutely this will go national. And in their own meetings, they tell each other that.
No, it's amazing when you put it the way you did, and look, they're honest. I give them credit. They're honest with what their plans are. This was supposed to be about states' rights. I mean, when the federal government said, you know, we're going to overturn Roe, it was going to go back to the states, and everyone thought, hey, we're going to go back and we're going to organize in the states, and the majority is going to win. And here they are again rigging the game.
Yeah, I mean, it really is ironic that the Dobbs decision, as flawed as it was, said this will take it back to sort of the majesty of democracy in states, and the people will decide. Well, now we see that these rigged legislators they gerrymander because they're afraid of the people. They know their extremism will not survive the people voting in fair districts. But now they're taking it to a different level. They're essentially, in this case, this is sort of a gerrymander of a statewide referendum. Change the rules so that if you're in the minority, you lose. So they are literally, I mean, these are people who probably would praise Kavanaugh or whoever it was part of that Dobbs majority. In this case, they're not even following what the Dobbs decision said, which is it should go back to the people, the states decide. They are doing everything in their power, everything to avoid the majority of Ohioans weighing in on this, which was, as you said, supposed to be what even the Dobbs decision said should happen. They want this decided by rigged extremists and gerrymandered districts in a way that the people of a state, even in this case, 59 or 60% of them agreeing that a woman should have a right to choose, 90% of them disagreeing with a ban that has no exceptions for rape or incest. 90% disagree with the current abortion ban, and they want to say, sorry, we get to do it, and the people of this state don't get to weigh in. And there's another part of this, by the way. I won't go through all the details. There's a poison pill in this thing beyond the 60%. They're creating a rule that to get something on the ballot, you have to have a threshold of signatures in all 88 counties, which would give any single county in Ohio a veto over the other 87, over, let's say, 70% Ohioans want something. Well, one county with 0.15% of the state could stop it. That also is an invitation for meddling in signature gathering. You know, the current massive scandal that just led to federal sentences for that corrupt energy bill in Ohio. One of the key aspects of that scandal that led to jail sentences was an effort to interfere with the signature gathering process. Well, they are creating this massive bottleneck that if you successfully meddled with the signature gathering in a few small counties, if in just one county you managed to stop the signature gathering process successfully, there wouldn't even be an election at all. So this is really an effort. A Republican Attorney General, a former one, who is running against this issue, siding with my view on it, has called this sort of a conspiracy to kill these things from even happening in the first place by giving every single county in Ohio a veto over the other 87 moving forward in election. That's how bad and cynical this thing is.
No, it's crazy. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're with David Pepper. David's a former chairman of the Ohio Democratic Party and author of Laboratories of Autocracy, a wake-up call from behind the lines. We'll get links out on social media. You can take a look at this. You know, I keep hearing, every time you come on, you keep telling me how bad my state is, my former state has become. And I keep coming back to, I know people in Ohio. I know that they're decent, they're hardworking. I know a lot of really good people. And you go, when do they have enough? When do they go? When does that throw the bum out sentiment? When does that take hold? Because every time I talk to you, something crazier, something worse is popping up.
I mean, we're sort of a bellwether now. We were a bellwether in terms of how we voted nationally. We're a bellwether now about how a hijacked state house can sort of just warp a state and not reflect the people of that state. We're still a lean red state. I'm not going to tell you that we're a blue state. A good candidate can win in a good year like Sherrod or Barack Obama. We're a lean red by a few points state. But we're not a crazy right-wing state. And what's happening in the state is, and it's happening all over, but we're a bellwether of this. Once you have a gerrymandered system, so the state reps to a person never feel any accountability in their entire careers, it stops being about the people you're talking about, the good people who kind of have common sense and a sense of moderation, who voted for John Glenn and then George Voinovich and then Bob Taft for governor. They kind of went both ways. Those people are pushed out of the picture when a state house basically is guaranteed to be reelected no matter how crazy they are because of gerrymandering. So it's an entity unto itself. And the reason they want to up the percentage to 60% is to get the people you're talking about from ever being able to stop the insanity we're seeing in the state house. So, Kansas, again, we think of Kansas as conservative, right? Well, they rejected abortion ban. They're 60-40. That's a bat signal to the country. Don't, in a blue state, assume that the people of these states are going along with the program of these crazy legislatures. These legislatures gerrymander. They change the rules to get to 60% because they know full well that their extremism does not reflect the people of these states. We might have a Republican legislature if we had fair districts. I'll acknowledge that. But it wouldn't be a Republican legislature acting like this. They would reflect the more mainstream. What does Ohio support? We support our unions big time. We support a woman's right to choose big time. We support a middle-class based economy. We want some common sense gun reform. Every poll shows that those things are all very popular. If you didn't have gerrymandering, you might have a slightly right-leaning legislature, but it would generally reflect those views as opposed to the exact opposite again and again and again. And that's why I think the people in these states that are hyper-gerrymandered, think of them as hijacked governments by these right-wing extremists who are nationally running the show, gerrymander, suppress the vote of the other side, run an extreme agenda through, and if someone gets in the way, be it another office holder, be it a state court, that was what Moore v. Harper about, or in this case, be it the people themselves, do everything you can to strip power away from the threat to that gerrymandered state house. So the people of the states are literally being dealt out of their own governance in their states.
So last question I've got for you in this last week. Anything our audience can do, anything that you're telling people to do, what are the marching orders to stop this nonsense?
I mean, if you're on Twitter, honestly, this is going to sound self-serving. Follow me at David Pepper because I'm giving, as you probably see, nonstop updates. We had about 65,000 absentee ballots. They were in at homes last Thursday that hadn't been returned. So I put out a call to action. Help me reach these voters. We put together a digital program. We reached all these voters, and already 30,000 of those ballots have come in. We've reached almost all 60,000 with repeated reminders to get their votes in. Today, we see the right wing buy $5 million in TV ads to close out the week with these scare tactic ads. Anything people can do to respond there. But forget that for a second. If you're in Ohio, vote early. Get everyone you know to vote early. If you're outside of Ohio, talk to Ohioans you know. But this is a case where a phone bank from anywhere, a text message from anywhere, postcards, I think we've run out of time for that. If you haven't done that yet, it's too late, although many have sent postcards. It's a low turnout election still. And any vote you prompt to show up and vote no could be the difference. So any way you can help there. And if you follow me at David Pepper, I'm giving a lot of those tips in the final week. And we've had good early vote numbers. The polling's pretty decent, but as I try and remind people, they are always underwater in the polls. That shapes everything they do. That's why they gerrymander. That's why they want the 60%. So when they're down in the polls with a week to go, what do? They run insane ads to scare their base to show up. They overperform through scaring people. And so no one should take anything for granted. They're always down in the polls, and they always come up with strategies to overcome that. That's sort of their whole MO. So anything people, and one other thing, as much as it's fitting that Donald Trump is indicted today, folks, you're not going to change anything that happens in that trial the next couple of weeks. You're not. We can all watch it, enjoy it, whatever. But what's happening in Ohio with democracy, you have more control over than anything that happens there. So watch it for a few hours. I did as well. But we got work to do here for next Tuesday. And I beg you, if you care about this issue, don't let that distract you. You can't control that, but you can help us control the outcome of a low turnout race that will have national implications. And if the wrong side is successful, they will bring this model to every single state where they can. So anything you can do to help out, we really, really appreciate.
There you go. David, I appreciate the time as always. Keep up the great work, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Thanks. Take care. Thanks for having me on.
David Pepper, former chair of the Ohio Democratic Party. Also, make sure you check out his book, Laboratories of Autocracy, a wake-up call from behind the lines. I'm going to take a quick break. Back with your thoughts after this. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. For working people from the top.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425. Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Yeah, states' rights my behind. Again, I go back to election night 2016. And a conservative friend at the time said it's going to be interesting to watch liberals become states' rights people. And look, we got to defend the states' rights at this point because they're trying to take even that. Let's go to the phones. Got Jack from Wisconsin on line one. Jack, how we doing?
Yes, peachy keen, thank you. I just wanted to mention Ohio may be gerrymandered seriously. Wisconsin is probably one of the worst, if not the worst, gerrymandered state. from 48% of the vote, our legislature is almost, fortunately not quite 2/3 Republicans, about 65% Republican. And they have rammed through their agenda repeatedly. Fortunately, we have a Democratic governor who has been able to veto most of the stuff. He vetoed the gerrymander, and the state Supreme Court, in violation of his constitutional veto power, overruled the maps that had been originally drawn, and they gave the Republicans the maps they asked for. I mean, this is just, fortunately, we have a changeover in our Supreme Court. We have a new justice who is pretty seriously committed to following legal remedies rather than a political agenda in the court. But give you an example, the state legislature rammed through a budget, and the first thing that they did was to give about $3 billion out of the $7 billion surplus that we had to the very richest in terms of a tax break.
Of course.
And the second thing that they did was to give private school welfare something like $3,000 additional per student, and they gave $300 additional per student to the public schools. But the catch with that is that the public schools didn't actually get it out of the budget surplus. They have to get a referendum and pass a referendum to even get that $300.
Jeez.
Fortunately, the governor vetoed the huge tax cut for the wealthy, but the rest of the stuff pretty much went through the Republican way.
Amazing, amazing stuff. Jack, I appreciate the call. Again, you listen to this stuff, and it's infuriating that this has been allowed to happen and this has been allowed to go on. But look, Ohio, again, Ohio, I still think is a little worse because they control virtually every level of government, and this referendum that they're running through, it's really just it's amazing. Let's go to the phones. We got Lewis on line 2. Lewis, how we doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, Rick. How you doing?
I'm fabulous. What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to say first and foremost, I have just been pumped listening to this show tonight because it really motivates me to become more optimistic about our future. And everything you're saying tonight really is hitting home. The importance of getting out here and support our workers. Which side are you on, right? You've been telling us this over and over again, how it is important that we become active. And this is the time, you got strikes happening all over the country. Things are getting done with, like you said, with President Biden, with all of his agenda. And people need to realize that, right? And also what you've been saying is Democrats have to come up with better messaging. There's not a time more perfect for that than right now.
Yep.
And if they don't, then that's a big tragedy. But I also just want to say one other thing real quick is, as I'm listening to you, my mom would be so happy if she heard this, show, because she was an ardent labor activist. She passed away 2 weeks ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm telling you, she was sitting here listening to your show. She would be smiling from ear to ear because she was a English teacher back in my hometown of Philadelphia. She eventually ended her career as the vice president of the teachers union down there, and she was really, really ardent. She was
I want to make mom happy.
Anyone?
Lewis, I appreciate the call, man. I got to go.
Yeah, no problem. Go ahead.
Thank you, brother. And look, it's all about making mom happy. I thank you. That makes me really happy. Back after this.
This is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1917. Frank Little, an activist for the Industrial Workers of the World, or Wobblies, was lynched near Butte, Montana. His beaten body was found hung off a railroad trestle. On it was pinned a disturbing note. It read, quote, "Others take notice. First and last warning. 3777 LDCSSWT. The numbers were the measurement of a grave. Each letter was the initial of a union organizer. The letter L for Frank Little was circled. The warning was clear. Union organizers leave town or die. Butte was copper mining country, and efforts to unionize the miners had turned the area into a battleground. Frank had arrived that July to help in the efforts to support striking miners. Frank Little was a leader of the IWW with experience organizing free speech campaigns, lumberjacks, and miners. Although not much is known of his early life, it is thought his mother was Cherokee and his father was a Quaker. He organized the wives of the miners to join in the pickets and helped build solidarity between the multiple unions that organized in the area. The Anaconda Mining Company took note of his presence, but could not find a legal means to stop him. Then, early on that fateful day, men came to his boarding house. They claimed they were police officers. They gagged Little and stuffed him into a car. They beat him and drug him through part of town tied to the car bumper. And it was at the county line where they hung Frank Little's body. News of the atrocity spread far and wide. Thousands attended the funeral. Not surprisingly, the authorities never found his murderers. Some doubt they ever tried. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Little known fact, a leading cause of death in Texas is Governor Greg Abbott. Yes, by intentional actions and deliberate inactions, Abbott has used his gubernatorial policies to kill thousands of Texans, including his calculated refusal to extend health care to millions of poor Texans, including nearly 1 million children. His intentional denial of water breaks for outdoor workers broiling under this year's 100-degree-plus heat dome. His lethal deregulation of utilities, causing the state power grid to collapse for days in the deep freeze of 2021, with hundreds dying for lack of heat and water. And his shameful prioritizing of gun extremism over the lives of school children. These people are not dying accidentally, but are victims of Abbott's premeditated policies and political ambition. Consider his silly scheme of throwing $9.5 billion of Texas taxpayers' money into the ditch of his highly ballyhooed border security PR show. Grandiosely branded Operation Lone Star, it has posed Generalissimo Abbott as a right-wing border hero. Some hero, he has stretched miles of razor wire underwater in the Rio Grande, slashing the flesh of migrant families and trapping babies and pregnant women in the coils. And Abbott's state troopers have been commanded to shove exhausted and injured refugees back into the river toward Mexico. As one appalled trooper says, we have stepped over a line into the inhumane. This willful cruelty is made ridiculous by the fact that Abbott's militaristic power play has totally failed to deter migration. After all, these families are fleeing for their lives and future, so he can wrap all of Texas in razor wire and they will still come and find a way in. This is Jim Hightower saying Abbott can kill lots of them, but he can't kill the human spirit.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I said earlier, the former guy, another indictment, number 3. Does the number matter? I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a couple more before this is all said and done. And, you know, the years could pile up. I had another person email me and remind me that Nikki Haley will pardon him, which is why Republicans should get behind Nikki Haley, which, okay. I'm not quite sure why you would run on the pardon or do away with this or end all of it platform right now before we've seen anything. But, you know, politics is what it is. Here to share some thoughts on today's indictments, I've asked our good friend Bill Scheer to come talk with us. Bill is the politics editor over at Washington Monthly, WashingtonMonthly.com, the website. Bill, thanks for taking time for us.
Always a pleasure.
So, any thoughts of the indictment? Any surprises today? Anything?
I can't say. I don't feel like I'm surprised by anything at this point. This is pretty well telegraphed. The evidence is obviously very strong. And we've already seen a great deal of capitulation amongst Trump's Republican rivals, very much in quotes, with people talking about how we should, DeSantis talking about weaponization of the Department of Justice, and Nikki Haley and Vivek talking about pardons. I mean, it does. I mean, there are obviously a few. Mike Pence indicated that this shows Trump should not be. That Trump put his personal fortunes over the Constitution.
Yeah.
Hutchinson wants him to drop out.
I want to hear nothing from Mike Pence. I mean, am I the only one who thinks that no courage points for you, no pat on the back, no positive check mark in history? Screw him. That's where my mind goes.
I put him one or two ticks above that.
Did you see his statement today?
Yeah.
This idea that he's going to come out now and say, oh, well, he shouldn't be president and all of this, and I stand with the Constitution. Yeah, after you check with the guy who can't spell potato. Then that gave you the courage to do what the Constitution told you to do. But only then, after you checked with Dan Quayle.
I mean, this is not perhaps the most important debate to be had, but you could say, well, he did the bare minimum, but there are a whole lot of Republicans who are not doing the bare minimum. So
I agree, but still not giving him any courage points. They tried to hang him.
I don't have to give him a Presidential Medal of Freedom or anything, but we do want a two-party system where both parties are respecting the basic rule of law.
Correct.
That doesn't mean I want to vote for a slew of Republicans, but I want them to do that bare minimum. Mike Pence checked that box. Maybe he didn't check any boxes before January 6th, but he checked that box. Chris Christie obviously did a whole lot of things I don't agree with, before that point. Says a lot of things today I don't agree with, but he's checking that one box right now. And I do want to see more Republicans check that box so we can get back to some sense of normalcy again.
I agree.
I don't think we're going to get. I don't think they're winning the day in the Republican Party right now, because not enough Republicans are doing it. It's only a smattering of folks who are in any kind of position of influence. And Donald Trump has been very canny in how he's handled these indictments. He announces them. He announces the indictments before the indictments are formally announced. He puts his narrative on that announcement. He rallies his base in advance of the announcement, and it's basically a warning shot to any other Republican. If you're going to criticize me for this, you're going to feel my wrath and the wrath of my supporters. And that has worked.
Yep.
The vast majority of Republicans don't want to get cross wires with him. And that is, I mean, I can't know if there was any other timeline here that could have materialized. But in my mind, the only way you could have derailed Trump from this nomination is if a very broad swath of Republicans came out to say that he is toxic, that he is a loser, that he is dead weight for the Republican Party, that he is corrosive to the body politic. It can't just be one or two or three people. It's got to be a wide range of people. So it pierces that conservative media echo chamber. So enough rank and file Republicans say, yeah, I kind of like that guy, but gee, he really does seem like dead on arrival on come in a general election. I guess we got to turn the page. That hasn't happened, and are you past the point of no return where it can happen?
Yeah. Now the thing that's interesting to me is you've got these co-conspirators, unnamed, although I think everybody knows, in wide ideas who they are: Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Eastman, Clark. That group. Are you reading this like I am, that the reason that they were unnamed is maybe this is a call to the rats that it's time to jump the ship and maybe move in a direction of being able to get rid of Trump? Because what's interesting to me is no seditious conspiracy, no treason, none of the good stuff. These seem like lower charges to me.
Oh, I would imagine these are charges that would come with jail time if they actually.
Well, yeah, 55 years for the four of them. Yeah, there's jail time,
Yeah.
But it's not the big ones.
I mean, I'm not going to get picky here. And I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal analyst. I don't claim to be a mind reader of what Jack Smith's about to do. I would think that not indicting others today is creating opportunities to approach them and say, if you cooperate, then maybe you'll get immunity and make it easier to convict Donald Trump. So we have to see what Jack Smith's next steps are. But that seems logical to me.
Yeah, for me, then the question goes, who's the rat? Will Rudy rat him out? Is Sidney Powell going to save her own skin? The rest of them, I still want to know about my congressman, Scott Pardon Me Perry. I still want to know what his part in all of this. Could he be the guy who said, you know what, we use the Insurrection Act to put down anyone protesting against the insurrection? Use the military to do that, and the Insurrection Act. Could that be him?
Yeah, it is hard for me to comprehend why anybody would risk imprisonment to protect Donald Trump. Why would anyone make that calculation that was the moral, personally satisfying, utilitarian thing to do? I don't get it. But imagine part of the calculation they're going to make is, do we think we can get Trump to election day and Trump will win and he'll pardon us all? Is that a better path for us than being dragged as a traitor by the Republican rank and file and have to live with that for the rest of our lives? I would think being on the right side of history would be and being free would be the better choice. But if they somehow think Trump, obviously Trump can win election. It's a competitive race for election.
Yep.
I wouldn't stake my freedom on it, but perhaps they'll make that choice.
Wow, there's a gamble, right? I mean, look, the gamble is supporting this guy anyway, because this is the thing that's always been curious to me, and this is going back to 2015. Because I remember talking to people who had been screwed over by him numerous times in the 70s, 80s, 90s, whenever, contractors and people who were who'd done work for him, that he just stiffed at every turn. And I'm going, who in their right mind would enter into any agreement with him, because he's going to save himself and he's going to step on your head to do it? Why do people keep putting themselves in this? I mean, to your point, I don't get it.
I mean, why did Saddam Hussein not just tell everybody, I don't have WMD, don't invade me? It's hard to get your head around why people don't make seemingly dead obvious decisions so they stay alive or stay free. But if you're in that bunker, if you're in that echo chamber, if you're getting validation from an insular group of people saying that sticking with Donald Trump is the just and a wise thing to do, then I guess you do it. But I mean, Giuliani is someone who's befuddling to me. Here's someone who could have been dining out on being Time Man of the Year for decades and chose the path of total infamy. So maybe once you've made that bet, you gotta ride to the bitter end.
Yeah, you gotta lay on that bed with your shirt untucked. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I'm there with you. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show with Bill Scheer. Bill is the politics editor over at the Washington Monthly, WashingtonMonthly.com, the website. We'll get links on the social media. You can take a look at the great work that he does there. So anything in this surprising to you? I mean, I had a conversation with a friend earlier ago. Yeah, we knew all this stuff because we watched the January 6th hearings, because they basically did all the work for the DOJ. Anything in here grab your attention? Shocking? Surprising?
Well, I haven't read every page, so forgive me for not being completely prepared. But I mean, the challenge for this kind of case, I thought, was proving that he knew what he was pursuing was fraudulent, because he could say, hey, I just thought I was pursuing my legal recourse. I thought that we had a legitimate reason to offer an alternative slate of electors and have that chance to be adjudicated. Don't blame me that was mistaken. I was doing that in good faith. how do you prove otherwise? And again, not even going through every line of the indictment, I did catch him telling Mike Pence, "You're too honest." I mean, it's very succinct, very clear. I mean, I suppose you could try to say, "Oh, I was kidding around." That was like a glib comment, but in the context of everything else, it's harder to argue it was some sort of throwaway comment, considering what he was being asked to do and what he actually did going forward. So it's those kinds of comments that I didn't know that Jack Smith actually had on the record.
Yeah, I'm interested to see all of the stuff that they've got, because I still think this has to be televised. I think it has to be on every network. I think it has to be. I think this has to be bigger than the OJ trial. Even if they got to break out the white Bronco or whatever they got to do, but this has got to be front and center, prime time viewing for every citizen, regardless of which side of this divide you're on. Because I think we do need to know what happened and when and how and why and all of that. I think it has to be presented all across the board under oath. The important part, none of this, we're going to make stuff up in kangaroo courts, but under oath with the person who has the ability to throw you behind in jail for perjury. I think this has to happen.
I don't know what the rules are. If there's a presumption that a federal criminal trial gets televised, or if that's a case-by-case decision by the judge, I just don't know what the answer is to that.
Yeah, but I don't know how you can do this behind closed doors.
I mean, we're pretty accustomed to televised trials, but the sexual abuse trial, civil trial that Trump just had, wasn't televised. So,
there's a huge difference between that and this, though, Bill. I mean,
I would like it televised. I just don't know what the rules are.
I don't either. I'm just for me, there's a big difference. This is the the foundation of our country. How many years did we have a peaceful transfer of power? Like 250 years, something like that.
Something like that.
Out the window.
Well, I mean, the upside of this, I'm of one to say, the Constitution has held. Trump threw everything at the Constitution, every possible thing to destroy the foundation of democracy, our system of checks and balances, and it weathered that. A literal insurrection fomented by the sitting president of the United States, and that could not stop the Constitution of the United States. That's how strong that document is. That's how strong the system is. So I'm a glass half full person in that regard, and the fact that he's being indicted now is further testament to that.
No, I will go there with you, and I institutions held, I would argue barely, but held. And that is a good thing. So last question I've got for you, because clearly Trump has strong support with a good number of people in this country. Does this become, what everyone fears? Do you think? Do you think we see, insanity?
I mean, I can't predict. I mean, it takes one person to do something horrible. It takes one person to do something horribly violent. We've seen individuals do that in the name of Trump already in the past several years. And we saw a group of people do something like that on January 6th. So I can't put anything past any one individual or group of people. But the system is not shirking from its duty despite that threat. It is going forward as it should. A crime was investigated, evidence was gathered, and indictments and trials will now proceed. That's what you want to see.
There you go. That is what I want to see. And I also want to see him in an orange jumpsuit being let off in shiny bracelets. But that's a whole nother day. But Bill, I appreciate the time. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the work that you do over at the Washington Monthly. I hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon.
Always. Take care.
Good stuff. Our good friend Bill Scheer. Make sure you check out his work over at the Washington Monthly. WashingtonMonthly.com, the website. Gonna take a quick break. Right back to wrap things up. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1938. At 8:30 in the morning, union members gathered at the port of Hilo, Hawaii. They were there to protest the docking of a ship with non-union workers, the SS Waialeale. The workers came from many unions, including the International Longshoremen and Warehousemen. 1938 was an intensive year for organizing on the Hawaiian docks. Estimates of crowds of workers gathering that day were as many as 800. The workers chanted, "The more we get together, 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 the more we get together, the better we'll be." They were met by police who used tear gas, fire hoses, bayonets, and bullets to break up the peaceful demonstration. Harry Kamaku, a Chinese Hawaiian labor leader, recounted what he saw, saying, "They shot us down like a herd of sheep. We didn't have a chance. The firing kept up for about 5 minutes. They just kept pumping buckshot and bullets into our bodies. They shot men in the back as they ran. They shot men who were trying to help wounded comrades and women. 50 people were injured due to this brutality. Fortunately, no one lost their life." The events at Hilo became a rallying cry for workers throughout the islands. Joe Kiali Alio, a longshoreman from Honolulu, recalled, "Now these guys would come down here from Hilo and they would mingle around and they would talk to us. They shared what they witnessed that day on the docks and then challenged the Honolulu workers to join the fight." The workers from Hilo said, "The Honolulu port has to organize. We can't do it alone." The University of Hawaii's Center for Labor Education and Research has developed a documentary about the events at Hilo as part of their Rice and Roses series. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
So I saw the creepiest picture that I think I've seen in a very long time. The Independent, they're a news organization, I think out of the UK actually. They had a picture of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, which is creepy enough. But she's, and I'm sure a lot of people, I'm sure you've seen this photo. She's big, cheesy grin with the legislation that she signed to, do away with work permits for kids. So, kids can go get jobs now without, any oversight, without any problem. We're gonna put kids back into the meat packing plants, get them back to work. Like Newt Gingrich wanted. Cleaning the Johns, fire those union janitors and get those kindergartners in there. They got small hands. Toothbrushes, clean around the toilet, really nice. But the picture with her, this big cheesy, look what I did kind of smile, and is surrounded by 5 kids who they don't look happy. They're actually frowning as this new labor policy goes into place. That's going to let these kids, back into dangerous jobs and doing all kinds of stupid stuff. Now look, I'm not against kids working. Trust me, I worked from the time I was 8 years old until today. I fully want kids to learn the value of a dollar. Sorry though, lumber mills, meat packing plants, anywhere where their alcohol is served. Yeah, I just no. The fast food joint, for a couple hours here or there, fine. But, this idea that if, kids under 16 don't have to get work permits, crazy. But she's thrilled about it. And there are these not smiling children. So I did this weird thing, because we talked about this yesterday. An Asian woman put her photo into one of those AI magic machines and said, hey, make my photo look more professional. Well, I took the photo of these children and put them in the AI magic machine. Now, I'm not going to publish them. This was for my own interest to see what the AI machine would come up with. And, tell me what a child laborer in America looks like. It didn't look like any of these smiling white children. No, they were more of a brownish complexion. Definitely not these kids, but these kids weren't thrilled either. And it's one of those things where we know who they're going after with child labor. We know who their targets are. It's poor kids. It's poor minority kids. You know, there's no more prison school to prison pipeline now. So now we just need to get them from the school to job pipeline, and the sooner the better. And this is where my problem is of where we're at. And look, the reality is the climate's getting worse. It's getting hotter. Kids, they can adapt a lot better. Which is why when I saw the Washington Post story that said your body can build up a tolerance to heat, here's how, my mind went, are you freaking kidding me? Small gradual exposure to heat can help the human body build tolerance to rising temperatures, according to experts. Start off small. This is how you ease into it. Go outside for a couple minutes, do a little exercise, and then, move around and listen to your body. When it tells you it's too hot, rest a little, and then do a little bit more tomorrow. Because, screw doing anything about the climate. You're just going to have to adapt. You're just going to have to get used to being hot. So lean in. And look, the sooner we get kids adapted to the heat, because, they're just sitting in the air conditioning playing video games, sooner we can get them out into those hot factories and doing that, the better for them. It's actually better for them. My mind went to Rex Tillerson, former Exxon head. Rex was questioned about climate change. And he said, look, there's no doubt climate change is real. It's no doubt that it's coming. It's just that we believe that we can adapt. With technology, we'll figure it out, and we can charge you for air and water and air conditioning and all that stuff. Going to make them a lot of money. And my mind went to this place where this is the Rex Tillerson way to deal with climate change. This is how they're going to get kids adapting early. Make sure that they're used to being in the heat. No more air conditioning in school. That should be a piece of legislation. Got to get them used to the future climate. Now, here's the thing. If we're talking about, the heat, I guess we got to talk about, hurricane winds, how we can build up an immunity to hurricane winds. Maybe be a little heavier. Maybe carry around chains or something to tie ourselves to things. Be prepared. Flooding. Maybe we start teaching kids how to swim sooner. There's all kinds of ways to adapt to the climate crisis that is coming. Droughts. We could all become camels, have humps on our back, store water. This is the future. Never mind actually doing anything to stop the damage. Never mind, we can adapt. And this is the kind of insanity. Thank you, Washington Post. I needed a story to tell me how incrementally we get used to the rising temperatures. Don't wear shorts anymore if you live in Phoenix, because you might fall and get burnt. Hey, don't go to Florida if you wanna jump in cool water, because the water temperature was 100 degrees. Who needs hot tubs when you could just go to the beach? This is the world that they're taking us towards. But just ease into the heat. Ease into it. 10, 15 minutes a day the first day. And then you just add 5 minutes every day after that. Really simple. So the heat's just in your head. You just have to get used to it. Never mind what all those climate people say. Don't worry about it. Just ease into it. Man. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. You miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you find your favorite podcast, you'll find ours. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.